So you want to get smarter about Canadian business, but you don't have hours to read the paper's business section every day? Now you don't have to. I'm Brett Chang.
And I'm Jay Rosenthal.
And every day we host the Peak Daily Podcast, getting you up to speed on Canadian business, tech, and finance news in less than 10 minutes every morning.
It's the perfect way to get the key facts and the stories you need to know about, all in the time it takes you to have your morning coffee.
Get the news you need and then get on with your day. Listen to the Peak Daily Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And as gas prices continue to soar right across the country, the hurt, well, it is long from over. Experts predicting today, how about this, even more increases are on the way in the coming weeks. Here's Dan McTeague, President Canadians for Affordable Energy, who joins us now for more. Hey there, Dan. Good afternoon.
Yeah, unless you're visiting a gas station.
Exactly. Well, first of all, let's just start with kind of the landscape, if we can, here on this Monday. Where are we sitting on average right now across the country?
About 209 a liter, 208, 209. It's likely to move up a little higher as some regions of the country haven't quite caught up to the changes that took place in the markets last week. Here, I'm thinking the regulated markets, they'll probably move up about 5 or 6 cents a liter. Some places in Western Canada, although they were expecting a pretty big increase today, it looks like they might actually not see that big increase, but they're still in the near the $2 range. Pretty much right across the country, you're at or near $2 a liter, mostly above $2 a liter. Only exception, Alberta, they got rid of their 13-cent sales tax, and as a result, they're in the high 180s.
Is Vancouver still the high water mark? I'm reading here, this is Global News copy. Vancouver hit, quote, an eye-watering price of nearly $2.37 a liter. I imagine that's because you look at that and just tears start dropping from your eyes.
Yeah, you know, your colleague, USCKW sister station out there, always gets the first crack at whether prices will be going up or down. And Janet Brown and I have a very good rapport going back many years. So they reported that back on Thursday or Friday. And I think a lot of people were still in disbelief because the last number record they had was 233.9 back on May the 18th, when we here in Toronto were paying 209.9. Both were records, but we've since obviously catapulted it way ahead of that number. And it's likely not today, not tomorrow, not even earlier this week, but by the end of the week and into the end of next week, we'll probably exceed those records again.
Yeah, just as a sidebar, can I ask you, it just occurred to me, and I'm sure it does to others as well, why do we see fluctuating prices from city to city and region to region here in the country? I mean, the price of oil per barrel is the price, after all.
Well, yeah, and there's also the gasoline market, which is really important during the summer because that's what's in demand as opposed to oil. But the two big factors, Jeff, are obviously difference in taxation. Taxes on the liter of gasoline in Ontario work out about 55 cents a liter in British Columbia. They work out to about 75, 76 cents a liter at 236.9. Much of that due to what's called the clean fuel standard that they have had in British Columbia for a few years. That's a total of 17 cents a liter. And guess what the federal government is going to begin the process of implementing next month? They don't want to tell anybody about this, by the way, but it's coming in. It won't hit immediately, but over the next several years, you will get up to what BC is paying, which is an additional 17 cents a liter, which unless the carbon market changes. The second differential is gas stations withholding their retail margin. So, you know, gas stations in Toronto charge about 8 cents a liter. That's to cover the cost of running their operations, paying their taxes, paying their staff, and of course, paying for the electricity to turn on the pumps and honor those credit cards, as I mentioned. These are all factors that go into some differentials. I see in some places outside of Toronto and where gas stations, don't charge that 8 cents a liter. How they make business, how they do well, I guess it must be the beef jerky, or perhaps they're making a lot more selling other products in store.
Yeah, it's amazing to see the fluctuation, though. 237, as I mentioned, in Vancouver, 224 a liter in Montreal, around 210 in the GTA. It's fascinating to watch. And speaking of watching prices, where are we going in the next couple of weeks, Dan?
Well, I think we can add another 5 to 7 cents a liter. I think Toronto will see 220, 222. Between now and the end of the month, as we head to July 1st, the long weekend. I would expect that that means British Columbia, in particular Vancouver, Victoria, will hit 240, 245. Montreal should be looking at 230, 232. The Maritimes a little bit less than that, almost where we are for Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and for PEI. Newfoundland not as high as it used to be because they've dropped gas taxes there 7 cents a liter last week. But really, there's no comfort for anybody. As long as oil and gas remain in very tight supply, we're going to continue to see these high prices remain.
Yeah, is that driving this next round of price increases in the next week or two, Dan? It's just simply supply?
It is mostly supply. Everyone's going to say, well, it's Russia, it's this, it's that. Look, this train has been coming for quite some time. We have said in Canada it's okay to block pipelines, and that's hurt the Canadian dollar badly. We've said in this country that it's okay to have carbon taxes, and it's only 12.5 cents a litre. Add that to it. By the way, the weakness of the Canadian dollar, no longer being the petrodollar, adds 30 cents a litre of gasoline. And of course, if you look at other factors, governments have increased taxes on fuel. They've taxed a percentage on that increase. It really does suggest that if we're going to not just see the Canadian dollar fall as a result of no pipelines, we also can't get the 2 or 3 million barrels of oil that Europe could desperately use right now. Now, there'd be a lineup of countries taking our oil as opposed to having to, play the blackmail footsies with Vladimir Putin and his deadly regime.
So is there any relief in sight on the horizon here, Dan, for Canadian drivers and families? Because as you well know, gas prices, they drive so many things when it comes to our economy, and certainly does not help when it comes to higher food prices, because that has to be transported for the most part, food goods by truck, that sort of thing.
I don't see anything on the horizon. Yes, you'll see I think the Ford government committed to dropping it 5-6 cents a litre with the HST. But this is really a call for the federal government, the federal Liberal members of Parliament. By the way, I pull no punches. As you know, I was a Liberal MP for 18 years. But they want these prices to go up. And talk about not reading the room, they want to increase by imposing that second carbon tax, the clean fuel standard, next month. I think it's really important that your listeners start picking up the phone to their federal Liberal members of Parliament and their friends in the NDP, because the government is being propped up by them. And tell them that their time may be nasty, brutish, and short if they're not prepared to finally recognize that there's something they can do. The federal and provincial governments are making a lot of money on the HST. If we've seen an increase year over year of 85, 90 cents a litre, that's about $4 billion to the province. That's about another $5.5 billion across the country to the federal government. That's not their money. They should be rebating it or finding a way to get it back to Canadians. The malarkey that somehow oil companies will take it if they drop it at the point of sale is nonsense. In Alberta, they dropped it 13 cents a litre. That was passed on within 48 hours.
Yeah. Is it your belief, because I've seen a lot of that talk online and elsewhere, that people believe everybody is kind of winning here by these high gas prices, but the consumer, as you mentioned, taxes, they increase, government coffers fill up, and of course, oil-producing nations, they make more money?
Yeah, look, if the policy is to get people to stop driving their vehicles, you're going to do more than that. You're at the point now where you're not only not able to make that decision to stop their vehicles, you're going to cause the economy to go into a complete free fall. And whether we like it or not, whether, we accept the narrative of the past 10, 15 years that we can divest, that we can choke off, that we can do all these wonderful things. At the end of all of this, the reality is that world demand for oil is going up. The question is, do we want Canada to be producing it, sending it out, getting it to markets, or do we want Russia, Venezuela, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the likes, serving as an alternative? And frankly, they're not interested in helping us either. We have to do this on our own. We're energy independent. We have the third largest provable reserves in this country. It is an absolute outrage, and it's disgusting that we in this country have got our minds so seriously stuck in the sand on the one issue of climate. I know that's important, but not to the exclusion of everything else. You're destroying the economy. You're destroying the affordability of Canadians, and it's time that people start picking up their phones and talking to their federal Liberal members of Parliament, especially here in Toronto, because that's where the government has got its greatest amount of support, and tell them this is wrong.
Dan McTeague, President of Canadians for Affordable Energy. I was going to ask you, Dan, do you have the number for the President of Canadians for Unaffordable Energy? Because that's where we're at.
Jeff, you and I may be starting a new company.
Okay. Dan, appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much.
As well. Take care. Good afternoon, Jeff.